moving forward.
Aloha, Kako. What do you know? We're back from home. All right, we got some interesting stuff to talk about today for our world news update, so let's get to it. Babiya, the divine guardian India, has died after 70 years. The crocodile named Babiya was the lone guardian of a temple in southern India. Now, this crocodile was considered a divine being, living entirely on a diet of boiled rice offered by temple priests twice a day. Bro, that's the life. If I had two guys making me a pot of rice all day, man. But that's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of like the classic, like, ancient guardian thing. Like, it's kind of cool to know that some of this stuff still exists, and it's not just like in ancient textbooks. But the temple, I mean, it was a Vishnu temple, is about 3,000 years old and has had many crocodile guardians, apparently. And so, like, Babiya appeared at the temple, like, in the 1940s, and it showed up, apparently, after a British soldier shot and killed the temple's previous crocodile guardian. So, I mean, but it's crazy. Like people took pilgrimage to this thing for its entire life. Like, it never attacked anybody. It didn't eat any animals. Like, they put babies next to it just to get blessed and stuff. And it would just sit there and take pets and eat rice all day, like a vegetarian crocodile. But so, as far as they know, it died of old age, which, like, I mean, that's a great way to go, is in your sleep. So, many attended the funeral. I mean, it's crazy to think that there's still little pieces of the old world left, you know, and it makes you wonder, like, how much of it is, you know, actual divine intervention and how much of it is just, like, people understanding the animal kingdom and, you know, being a part of the world that's still connected enough to nature to understand and interpret it and interact with it in a way that is it's beyond beneficial. I don't know, like, there's something to be learned from a crocodile that just sits in a temple for 70 years and just loves on people, because a creature like that, guys, you know, I mean, that's the thing, is like we see certain animals to be hardwired in certain ways, and then we see things like this only to find out that, like, I mean, anything's possible. So I don't know, like, I what I'm more wondering about is, when is their next guardian going to show up? Does it show up, or, like, have we, like, killed the planet enough to where guardians don't show up anymore? I don't know. Like, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for that one. And we'll have an update. but I just felt that was, like, you know, cute place to start inside the sandwich of today. You know, and then we'll just gauge it up, and then we'll get a little angry, and then we'll gauge it back. But yeah. You know, so next scale on that sandwich, weird thing to think about, you know, and I opened up with weird, but weirder than ancient crocodile guardians. Scientists and researchers may think that they have found water deep inside the earth where they thought there was not water. Like, nearly, like, 10 times the ocean's worth of water. But that part is speculation. But, so the thing is, geoscientists in Germany were investigating a diamond that was formed beneath the Earth's surface in Africa. Now, when they analyzed it, they found it contained a large amount of water. The amount of water in that diamond is evidence that supports a theory that a huge ocean is between the upper and lower layers of the Earth, inside the planet's crust. Now, scientists feel they've demonstrated the transition zone is not a dry sponge Like, it's not just like a bunch of porous rock that's like, you know, transitioning it. Like it's not like a part of the aquifer system, I'm guessing. Like it's like it's a storage bank. And it's probably, for all we know, a cleaning zone. It probably also a dispersal zone. I mean, I'd hate to think that mankind would take this as an excuse to dig deeper and we'd just end up with man-made volcanoes as an accident. So I think that like we need to kind of be aware of this as we go looking for this. That like, I mean that's a huge thing. I mean, I'm kind of glad we figured out there was more in there. I'm not really surprised to a degree that we would eventually find water. I didn't expect like 10 times water to be a thing. But I mean, this is really going to revise the conversation on where our water came from, you know, because like the predominant theory is that our planet was too hot to develop water. So like it's always been a commonly accepted belief that we got it from comets and asteroids, like just like ice chunks came from other places in the solar system, you know. So like combine those with the new theories suggesting that the biblical great flood may have occurred to some degree, or maybe multiple floodings. Now this is not to say that stories of myth are 100%, but it leads us to believe that these tall tales were potentially shaped around real events. So the idea is this: somewhere between 15 and 6,000 years ago, massive flooding, like melted glaciers, raised sea levels, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. You get it. All right. So geographers have taken these accounts and all these legends, and they're kind of like piecing them together in like a historical Sherlock Holmesian type of way. So, but like, they've gathered 32 like sets of geomyths from indigenous communities around the coast of Australia, and it kind of depicts like a lot of sea level rise throughout the ages. So here's the thing: during the last ice age, the melting of ice sheets like started causing extreme sea level rise. Now, like the oceans like rose so much that like people over time like noticed. Like it was more than just be like, oh, they painted the Denny's. It'd be like, bro, like that beach is gone. But like, I mean, we notice that kind of stuff this way. Like we notice, especially in these parts, we know about shoreline erosion, or like, you know. So it's like it's crazy to think that like this is. I mean, it is a repeated problem, but like at what a pace, you know, and how can sometimes this be related with like what's going on underneath the planet versus what's going on in our atmosphere, you know? So, now what's like crazy about like these scientists looking at these geomyths though is that like they're starting to find an ounce of truth, which like leads me to think that eventually maybe we could start defining like what micro fact is inside of all of the mythological fiction that's lying around. Because like if these guys were managed to like cut all the BS out of a bunch of like Noah's Ark level fables and then like match it up with like geologic history, like that's, I mean, you know, I mean we had such an age of hyperbole in writing for the longest time, and I think that's why these researchers thought that, like, a lot of these myths were more warnings, you know, because like we didn't have TV back then, we didn't have social media back then. So how do you like keep the hype on something, make it sound bigger than it is? So like the idea is that like, yeah, we had some floods, and then someone went, you know, it was so bad we all had to get on a boat. You know, so you know, by telling that message to the future, like it's a crazy thing that like somewhere within the structure of like biblical tales is like hidden warnings of something that's just been conflated enough that, you know, we just see it for the fable that it is. But it's crazy. It's crazy, and I think that like it's not going to be an anytime soon thing, you know? I mean, like, guys like this that study things like this, I mean, it's nothing but rocks and time. So we'll put a pin in it, but if I can find somebody crazy, just crazy enough to tell us how this stuff works, I think that would be sizably better than getting a flat Earth Dave anytime soon. All right, so I warned you. We were going to start talking about more serious stuff going on in the world. All right, so fun in the sandwich aside. Turns out pro-Russian hackers, this hacker group, Killnet, is taking credit for temporarily taking down U.S. airport websites. Now, the cyber attacks, like, they were stated as impacting the websites for LAX and Chicago and Jackson International, but like the crazy part is like, one, like they started this all out on Telegram, right? So then they urged other people. So this is like this is like the crazy thing between like, you know, Anonymous and other groups. Like Killnet, it's weird because like they really just like called on everybody who had a shotgun in their closet that could pull off a DDoS, and they just went to town, you know? So it's showing where like the caliber of hacker is coming from. They're kind of just taking anyone, which is a dangerous thing to do because there's going to be people that are going to take advantage of that. So then it's like, yes, they went in and they put in these DDoS attacks and they weakened the infrastructure of the mainframe, but then like who's in there doing other stuff? Like, I mean, some of these sites, like their parent companies feel like they didn't even falter. You know, it was just like, oh, DDoS attack, call Cloudflare, we'll fix that. You know, but they listed more airports than got hit. Like, the feds don't know how many airports were actually hit or they got full-scale attacks. So, I mean, some of these could have just got a simple DDoS attack, been down, been up. Some of these probably, like, it's Russia-related. So, like, not to sound too fucking tinfoil hat here, kids, but, I mean, there's a possibility that they could have put malware inside of those things and won't find it, you know, for ages, or they could have put just a piece of code and they'll come back and they'll one part of at a time their way in and then just sequentially knock something out. So, I mean, it's not too crazy of an idea in a sense. I mean, if someone as dumb as me can figure that out, like, obviously these kids are crazy enough to think about it. You know, they were already trying to take down other stuff, and they're trying to take credit for some other things going on. So some of it may be them, some of it may just be the fallout of their crazy mayhem. But I mean, they're willing to take out sea terminals, logistics facilities, weather monitoring centers, which, like, I mean, I think, like, to a degree, we'll be safe without a weather monitoring system unless, like, the freak storm of a century comes out. But, I mean, like, think about that on a crazy level. Like, we live in a day and age where, like, why even worry about nuclear warfare when, like, if someone gave us, like, broken weather patterns for a week and the Navy couldn't see anything but that, or, like, planes couldn't navigate properly because like all their instruments are going, you know, I mean, it's nuts. Like, just wrapping your brain around that, like, it gives you a headache, brother. So like, I feel to a degree it's something we need to be aware of, especially since like this is what we get for kicking down the door in Ukraine and helping out there, which, I mean, it's still going on. It looks like there might be, you know, a little pushback against Russia, but I mean, you can't really tell. I mean, I feel like this is like, I feel like I'm a little kid watching Desert Storm all over again, to some degree. You know, all this ramp up, and then like, well, won't they? Nah, they ain't gonna win yet. And then like things change because like at the end of the day, like Putin's got more weight to throw around than Zelensky. You know, so there's an eventual point, like we've seen it in all social structures. There's that asshole in your group, you know, and then you kick them out. But then sooner or later, like 10 years later, they edge them way back in, or they find that little thread that they can pull on that makes you just come back towards them. And that's the problem with Putin, okay? Is that we try we try so hard to keep him away, but he has ways of working himself into the system. I mean, take case in point, he pulled a very, very minute thread of Nazis in Ukraine, which to the general public eye didn't seem well founded enough, but on paper totally was for how many freaking skinheads we've been exporting to the Ukraine since freaking 9/11. You know, so it's weird. We're at a weird point in history, you know, like this is probably the most like facts torn scenario of engaging in a conflict, but it's like nobody's in the right here, you know. It just like, okay, Putin, sure, there are Nazis there, that's a problem. Are there enough Nazis for it to cause a problem? Not until you came. Well, which, wow, that's, I gotta say, like now just having that thought out loud kind of scares me, the idea of like maybe he went Nazi hunting just so that way it would draw the Nazis out, and then maybe it would like giving him like, this is is this like a Canadian Bacon level storyline if you take away all like the blood and gore. I mean he's done it. He really has in managing to get us to play this game yet again. I mean, but then again, this was, you know, we've had more than just the Ukraine in the past 20 years with him, in the past, you know, 40 years with Russia. I mean, to say that the conflict with them has ever ended, I mean, it's more poignant to say that it just gets a little cold for a while and then we warm it back up. You know, it's that bad hot pocket we never finish. That's moving forward.
We live in a fast-paced world where many people are too busy to sit down and read books or news articles. But thanks to Newsly, you can now listen to the news you wish you had the time to read. By utilizing AI technology, a natural human voice reads you the news, helping you grasp the information faster and more efficiently. Newsly provides the latest news updates 24/7, letting you browse articles from topics you choose. It even has podcasts, including ours. And listeners of Rabbit Holes can get their first 30 days of premium for free, allowing you to enjoy an ad-free experience by using the special promo code in our episode description. So download Newsly today for free on iOS and Android, or visit www.newsly.me so you can stay updated on the things that matter to you. Moving forward.
Speaking of bad things never finished, Tulsi Gabbard. Well, I mean, I guess her bad things are finished now because now she won't look too crazy as a member of the Democratic Party, and she'll fit right the fuck in with the GOP because we've got nuts these days. I mean, that's the craziest part is like, I don't want her, but I mean, I guess a fair amount of my party wants her. So like, I don't know. I've always drawn the line on her. I was confused when she was a Democrat because like it seemed that she kind of went all the way to the right via going so far to the left. She like just cruised on the other side of that Mobius strip magically. Like it's so she posted a video to Twitter, Tulsi, And she was just like, I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that is under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white race. I can't finish that. Like, look, I gotta say, like, dude, I'm Republican, but I don't eat the Uncle Tom candy like you, Auntie. Sorry, that's what it is, because like this is like the same stupid shit that comes out of Kanye's mouth these days. Like, she's so bent on being wanted that she threw away all of her credibility 20 years ago when she, started buddying up with Modi. I mean, it's like when John Kane says to you, kind of legitimizes the guy who butchered 400,000 of his people. That's kind of a sign. When someone's so like old school war room, willing to carpet bomb a city to prove a point, like type of leader turns around and like says you legitimize the butcher, like you should really think out loud, like, what have I done with my life? So I mean, she's always had this itch for authoritarians. Like, it really is the weirdest part of her foreign policy. I mean, but that's what's made her uniquely different in the Democratic Party, because it's like she's against the war machine, but she's totally for just like dictator level dicks, which is just like, I feel that that's like secretly part of like just like the Hindu side of her, because like I don't think anywhere in the coconut parts she'd be that dumb enough, but like per the colonial control and just division that has always been over India, there's a part in their culture where, when Whitey says bark, they say yip yip. And she's yipping all the way now. So, like, she's... it's not anti-white racism. All right, let's call a duck here. When people are assholes, you call them out. When people do things that are wrong, you call it out. When a country legitimizes rape and slavery for a couple hundred years under, religion and the high society ideals, like, I mean, dude, bro, like, there's a lot wrong with this country and where we've gotten. There's a lot that has been twisted in the last few years because of skewing of the facts and the post-reality era that we've entered into. And I feel that, like, she's merely she's a byproduct of this. Like, that's the sad part. She's not an original part of this. I don't see Tulsi's decision to become a whatever she is. I mean, I'm sure she's going to be full-blown freaking GOP, but like, I mean, especially after like, filling in for Tucker Carlson. I mean, it's just like, wow, like she's like aiming for like the next Sarah Palin or Bobbert. God, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, why do we need more of these nutbags? Like, who thinks it's okay, And the silly part is like, I don't see anything outside of like the echo chamber around her that's telling her it's all anti-white racism. Like, that's the new thing that all the snowflakes want to get into, is just like, oh, well, you're actually just being racist towards me by not allowing me to be racist towards you. Like, folks, let's boil that down, okay? This whole anti-woke shit, like, that's people saying I don't want to be kind. That's people saying I don't want to be critical of my actions. Like, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. You want to call it woke. You want to call it being a nice person. You want to call it thoughtful of the rest of the human race. Unless you're able to open your mind and think about 9 billion simultaneously besides your sorry ass, you shouldn't be, cowardly wokeness. No, what's cowardly is actually feeding the flames of racism by helping the people go, oh, I swear I'm not racist, as they line up people specifically based upon ethnicity. All right? Take them out one by one. A culture that has proven over multiple centuries now that it clearly had an agenda against people of color. I mean, it's probably the dumbest racist agenda since like the ancient Greeks. So I don't get it. Like I don't, and that's the sad part is like at the level of what people don't realize, like how many things America made legal by saying it was legal inside of its country, or doing the things that it did, so it inspired smaller countries to do even more terrible things. So I think she's now a commodity to the GOP. She's going to puppet for it. Like, I mean, but this is coming from a guy who votes Republican, you know, in most cases, and it has always signed the name as such. But I don't like the party flip that's been happening. It's not the direction that I wish it would have gone. We could have, you know, put together some kind of intelligentsia. We could have made an effort to actually like have our shit together and focus on the issues and not again spitball on stupid shit like ethnic cleansing. You know, I mean, we're catching these dodos every day. I mean, the January 6th hearings are not over, and all of these guys that are coming out of it, like, say what you want and try to cover it up, but like these nutbags are real. This isn't some crisis actor crap that you can just fucking stuff cotton in your ears and pretend it didn't happen. So what will this do for Democrats? I don't think it'll do anything because they were letting go of Tulsi a long time ago. In some cases, not for the right reasons, because I still feel that there's parts of her that used to make sense. Don't quote me. But, you know, that's... I can only imagine what it would be like to talk to her one day after she's gone full-blown crazy. I bet I'm going to wait like a year before I write her a letter. I want to be closer to like a presidential bid because God only knows she's going to like use this party flip as her maneuver to try to get in as a VP hopeful. Don't quote me on that either. Okay. Enough is enough. I won't rain on anybody else's version of the Republican parade. I won't rain on your reality anymore. We'll we'll make our digs on Tulsi more another day because I'm sure it'll happen. Anyways, before I digress, let's go somewhere else for a moment. Let's clear our minds, open your mind, if you will, and imagine a world where a woman believes she's in love with an astronaut. Now that first part, statistically hard to believe, but not impossible. But this next part, okay, so get this. When Auntie in Japan was convinced that she was talking to a Russian astronaut on the International Space Station. Let that sink in for a moment. Grandma thought she was talking to one astronaut. So the astronaut, which I gotta say, like, whatever Nigerian prince is on the other end of that, like, well played. Like, he convinced her he loved her. He proposed to her. He was like, baby, we gonna get married when I get back to Earth. But I need money for a return ticket. He needed money for a return ticket. Like, who is... So, like, Okay, so I mean, I know y'all don't know how space works, but like, yeah, there's like a whole. I mean, when you send someone up, you have to like plan the whole sending them back, even if it's like a year away to send them back, or even if it's 2 minutes to send them back. But so usually, what comes up must come down when it comes to bodies in space. So that's like a, ain't gonna happen. But like, he was like, I need 30 G's for my landing fee. And it's like, one, that's probably a lot of money for grandma because that's a lot of yen. That's like 4 million plus yen, right? I don't math yen to dollars very well right now. Anyways, but boy probably could have got a lot more. Like when you think about how much like a trip to the moon costs. So it's like, I feel you were lowballing, bro. But then again, shouldn't be taking advantage of the aunties like that. But like, I thought it was interesting that like after they got like 30K, they kept asking for more, even though she finally started like, ooh, I should probably talk to the police. But it just baffles the mind to think that like we live in a day and age where people think that they're actually talking to an astronaut in space. And then that's the funny part is like astronauts can't like regular text from space. I mean, they're on like a special comm system. Like they don't take like their cell phones. They don't like, I mean, I'm sure that like they're probably allowed to have like iPhones and iPads up there, but like there's probably only like so much Candy Crush they can have on it. So I just don't to think that, like, I wonder what the profile photos look like. Like, what made Auntie think it was real? Did he just like Google image search or like Wikimedia images and be like, bam, Earth, and then he's like tagged at work? Yeah. Oh, well. One last thought to leave you with here. Before I head out, one final laugh because it was enough to rack my brain with Tulsi today. We'll rack our brains more another time, but my last morsel of humanity to make you hopefully like see the brighter side of things, but maybe we'll still kind of go dark in the end. I don't know, but like so. The Florida Pasco County Sheriff Office tweeted recently, to clarify, do not shoot weapons at Hurricane Irma. You won't make it turn around, and it will have very dangerous side effects. So the crazy part is like, this was like, part of this was profile enough to get like reported by Time News. Like, and I think that's just baffling to a degree. Well, one, like everybody got on this hubbub about it in Florida about like shooting at the storm because someone made a joke event page, and then other people were like, wow, man, that's a great joke. Let me just make my own. And so then we've got all these Florida man shoots at freaking Hurricane Irma joke pages coming up, and and that's the funny thing is like, I mean, government agencies are so easily confused by social media hoaxes and satire. It's just like, it's a lot like the OP band thing that we just had and the Big Island Cats. So, I mean, what is this a sign of for society? I mean, like, when we, like, it was one thing like 15 years ago to be able to go like, is that an Onion article? Because like back then it was quality satire that actually had to make you like pull up the hood a bit, but like you had to go so deep in you knew it was from a satire site. Now we have an age of sensationalism in all forms of media that like you now have younger people or new people cutting into the social media like satire fun hoax game, and they don't have the, I mean, not to sound elitist, the education necessary to convey satire on a level that would make people feel, one, that's got to be a joke, really, and two, like the intent behind satire. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of it. So, I mean, and then there's a certain point to where it goes into the negative far more than the positive of it being a joke. So, I mean, it's whether it's, we're really out there for just a good old riff of irony. But the problem is we now have people who, like, I mean, they're good at it, but I don't think they realize what they're actually good at is just, like, making something look like it's real, and then that causes more confusion. Like there's quite a particular nuance to, writing comedy of that style, and like I wouldn't even bother with it myself because it really is a headache, because you have to really watch what you say or else the Pasco County Sheriff is going to be doing emergency talks on not shooting at a hurricane. You know what, folks, save your bullets for I'm sure though that, like, I mean, it's Florida, so I mean, to think that, like, if it was a joke enough for someone to want to make a joke event page, where's that, like, 1 out of 10 dentists who actually wants to shoot the hurricane? Yeah, no, really, I'm sure there's somebody who actually went out, got some bullets, and went, man, we gonna do this, And then they got back on the internet and they went, canceled, it doesn't really work. And they're, oh, shucks. And then they just, like, battened down the hatches and stuck it out through the hurricane. Well, thanks for sticking it out with me today. We'll catch up with you more this weekend when we cover the entertainment, and see you later in the week for more updates on Maui. Mahalo for the follows, for the listens, and I'll catch y'all later. Aloha.